Hello everyone. Hope you all had a great week. So last week we saw in detail Taylor's scientific management principles and techniques. So this week we're going to deep dive into Fayol's principles of management. The biggest of changes, the biggest of revolution in cinema came about through French cinema makers. Similarly, in management, it was Henry Fayol, a French management theorist, who brought about an ocean of change. While Taylor's scientific management principles concentrated majorly on functional foremanship, method study, motion study, time study, different piece, weight, system, etc., Henry Fayol's principles, it concentrated on two things. One, what managers are supposed to do, and two, what are the principles which are going to guide managers to do this work. So Henry Fayol's principles of management, there are 14 major principles. There are total 14 principles under Henry Fayol's principles of management. When I was thinking of how I can correlate these principles with real life, there's one example which I got, which is quite a sensation in modern mass media, which I thought exactly commensurates with all these principles of management. And that example, that contemporary mass media sensation, which we are going to relate to each and every principle of Fayol, is going to be Big Boss. Big Boss. So here we get into Henry Fayol's principles of management versus Big Boss House. So the first principle is division of work. The first principle of Henry Fayol is division of work. Any work, any major work, that is broken down into many smaller parts, and these smaller parts are given to set of individuals or individuals. So what happens because of division of work? When you divide the work, everyone gets a part of work. Not anyone is bogged down by the total work. Everyone gets a part of the work. So when everyone gets part of the work and they keep doing the work over time and again and again and again, what happens is they gain specialization over the work. So what is the benefit of specialization? You achieve what is called learning curve. What is learning curve? For example, an employee takes 1 hour to produce 10 units. With learning curve, that is doing the same work over time and again, what happens is now within the same 1 hour, he's able to produce 12 units because he has understood the nuances involved in the work. So this concept is called learning curve. When there is learning curve, what happens? Your efficiency it increases exponentially, and your output increases, and the revenue increases, and thus it leads to achievement of organizational objectives, personal objectives, and social objectives. So this is a major component, this is a major benefit or achievement of division of work. So for example, in Big Boss House, what happens? The entire work is divided into different teams. We have something called cooking team, we have something called washing team, we have something called cleaning team. This team is made up of people who are good at that work. So good chef, they get into the cooking team. People who can keep the place spick and span, they get into the cleaning team. So etc. like that. So over the period, the entire organization looks spick and span and clean, and it works seamlessly. With respect to organizational perspective, for example, there's one person who's very good at sales and marketing. There's one person who's very good at finance and accounts. There's one person who's very good at people management. So different teams are formed. There's a separate sales and marketing team. There's a separate HR and payroll team. There's a separate finance and accounts team. So these teams, it divides the total work such that specialists get into the work and do the work, get the work done and achieve organizational objectives. So this is the first principle, division of work. The second principle, authority and responsibility. So what is authority? Authority is the ability to give orders and to command obedience. Hey, get this done. So that is authority. Hey, get this done. So when you order that person and that person obliges to whatever you're saying, so that is authority. And what is responsibility? Responsibility is nothing but it's a corollary of authority. It's a natural descendant of the emotion of authority. It should be a space where both authority and responsibility should go hand in hand. To the person to whom you are giving authority, to the same person, you should also make the same person responsible for the work. So for example, if you give one person too much of authority, but you don't affix responsibility on them, what happens is there could be abuse of managerial power. But you entrust a person with so much of responsibility, but you don't give him any authority, the person will not be encouraged, will not be motivated to do the work. So in Big Boss house, every contestant has got the authority to project himself in whatever way he wants. In whatever way he wants, he can project himself. He has got the authority for that. But the responsibility for the votes that he receives, the responsibility for public reaction that his action garners, that would be his responsibility. He cannot affix that responsibility on anyone else. That would be this individual's responsibility. So in an organization, for example, you give a manager the authority to fix credit period. Say for example, you give the authority to fix credit period, but there's a high value, high ticket customer who's coming in who's asking for credit period of say 120 days. You need to give him the authority to give that 120 days. But at the very same time, tomorrow, when there is collection of receivables, you also need to fix the responsibility on him to collect the receivables from that high ticket customer. That is authority and responsibility. Next, coming to the third principle of Fayol, which is discipline. Discipline is quite a beaten principle. Everyone knows what is discipline. What is discipline? Adherence to the organizational principles and the terms and conditions of employment agreement. The obedience to these principles and employment agreement, that's called discipline. What else is discipline? That's called discipline. So discipline is very important, and to ensure discipline in the workplace, there are three important requirements. One is that you require good superiors at all levels of the organization. Two is that you require very fair and clear agreement. And three is that you require judicious application of penalties. These three are very important to ensure there is proper discipline in the organization. Coming to Big Boss house. Where is the concept of discipline in Big Boss house? Even before a contestant enters into Big Boss house, there is an agreement which is signed with the contestant. You need to adhere to the terms of that agreement. If you don't do that, you are chucked out of the Big Boss house. This is one. Two, inside the Big Boss house, there are certain terms and conditions. The contestants cannot be awake beyond a point of time. They cannot sleep beyond a point of time. There's no drinking which is allowed in the house. All these are terms and conditions which you need to obey when you're inside the Big Boss house. So the next principle of Henry Fayol's Principles of Management is unity of command. So what is unity of command? The name itself says there should be only one boss, there should be only one superior for every individual working in an organization. This is mainly to avoid dual subordination. So what happens when more than one bosses are there? You'll have to report to various bosses, there are a lot of tasks, and there's a lot of confusion over what work is to be done first. And as a result, the effectiveness and efficiency both get affected. So, in any organization, for every individual employee, there should be only one boss to whom he should report to and who should hold him responsible. For example, in Big Boss house, there are various teams as we discussed. There's cooking team, washing team, cleaning team, etc. For all these teams, there's one leader who leads the team. And all the contestants who are within those teams, they'll have to take instructions only from their respective leaders. And this concept is called unity of command. So next principle, unity of direction. What is unity of direction? There should be unified direction, which means all the units of an organization should keep moving towards the same objective through focused and coordinated efforts. So for example, in Big Boss house, what does the program Big Boss operate for? It operates for high TRP. when you reach best TRP levels, what happens? You get a lot of ad revenue for the broadcasting company. So the overall objective is high TRP. And how do each of the individuals achieve that? How do all the units, all the contestants in Bigg Boss House achieve that? Everyone should work, should strive hard and work controversially such that they earn this TRP for themselves. So when each of them work towards better TRP, the show by itself achieves very high TRP and the broadcasting company, it earns very high advertisement revenue. So this is unity of direction. There's also one more aspect to it. So for example, those divisions which have the same objective, they should have every division with an objective, with one objective, should have one head and one plan. From a business point of view, take for example, Tata Group has got hospitality division. All the Tata Group of hotels comes under hospitality division. The same group has also, Tata Group has also got FMCG division, where your Tata Tea, Tata Salt, all that comes under FMCG division. So the FMCG division should have a separate head and it should have separate plans, separate set of goals to achieve, etc. And similarly, the hospitality division should have a separate head, a separate plan, separate set of objectives and ways, executionary mode on how to achieve those objectives, etc. So this is unity of direction. There could be a question in your exam on the difference between unity of command and unity of direction. It is very simple. The first difference is the definition itself. Unity of command, every individual employee should have only one superior, should get command from only one superior and should be reporting to only one superior. What is unity of direction? All the units of an organization should move in the same direction, should try to achieve the same objective through focused and coordinated efforts, and every division with the same objective should have one head and one plan. So what is the benefit of it? Unity of command, it helps prevent dual subordination. Whereas unity of direction, it helps prevent overlapping of efforts, duplication of efforts. So what happens if unity of command is violated? It affects only an individual employee. Please remember, if unity of command is violated, it affects only one employee. Whereas if unity of direction is affected, is violated, what happens? It affects the organization as a whole. So these are the differences between unity of command and unity of direction. So next, going on to the next principle, which is subordination of individual interest to group interest. Subordination of individual interest to group interest. The interest of the organization takes the front seat. The interest of the organization takes priority over the interest of any individual or any group of individuals of the organization. The organization has got various stakeholders. There are shareholders, there are debtors, there are creditors, there are government authorities, there are debenture holders. Lot of stakeholders are there. The interest of all these stakeholders cannot be sacrificed just to safeguard the interest of an individual or a group of individuals who exert pressure on an organization. That cannot be done. That is subordination of individual interest to group interest. So let's get back to Bigg Boss House. There are certain people who sleep all throughout the day. As per Bigg Boss rules, you're not supposed to sleep throughout the day. If you sleep throughout the day, the luxury budget points will get affected. It will get reduced. So the entire house will suffer. So that, because of one individual's mistake, because of the interest of one individual over the organization's interest, the entire organization gets affected. Okay? So next, going on to the next principle, which is remuneration of employees. What is remuneration? The benefit that you get because of doing some work, that's remuneration. So the remuneration should be just, it should be fair, it should be equitable. So remuneration should exactly commensurate with the work that the employee is doing. It should be fair for both the organization as well as for the employee. Good remuneration, what does it do? It creates a very congenial work atmosphere. For example, in Big Boss house, every contestant of Big Boss house does lot of monkey dancing. Whatever the Big Boss voice says, they do everything of it. They do everything of it. They do a lot of monkey dance inside the house. Why do they do that? What makes them do that? The remuneration that they get for all the monkey dancing that they do inside the house is a good paycheck, is very good publicity, and good reward points so that you can enjoy your food when you're inside, a good food when you're inside the Big Boss house. So this is the remuneration they get. In case Big Boss doesn't pay them good paycheck for all the dancing that they did inside the house, what happens? These people come to YouTube, they start cribbing about whatever happened inside the Big Boss house, they start cribbing about other contestants, they violate the agreement, they tarnish the image of an organization. So when an employee is not satisfied with his paycheck, with his remuneration, he tarnishes the image of an entire organization. So that is remuneration of employees. So next principle of Henry Fayol is centralization and decentralization.